Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hey, and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have another great show for you tonight. Right here beside me is Michael Wolf-Siegel on as a guest again. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
And Kevin Bjornson. We have a long and unusual relationship in terms of we were all arrested by the federal government together between, when were you, 1988 or
89.
89, and then you got busted in 89, then we both got busted again in 90. But we'll be talking about federal Operation Green Merchant, and we have other videos from Jorge Cervantes. We have a little meeting I had with Randy of the Trailer Park Boys. And we've got about 4 minutes of video of that, so stay tuned, because first, before our hemp news, we're going to bring out our infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
Okay, our first story tonight is from Seattle. Jobs in state licensed cannabis industry rose 15% during the past 12 months, and the industry now employs over 243,000 full-time workers, according to data compiled by Leafly.com. According to its 2020 report, the regulated cannabis industry added 33,700 new jobs over the past year. States adding the greatest number of new cannabis-related jobs were Massachusetts with 10,266 and Oklahoma with 7,300. Overall, the total number of full-time jobs in the licensed cannabis industry has doubled since 2017. This report concludes, quote, "The refusal of the federal government to acknowledge the existence of legal cannabis jobs is a powerful act of shaming and stigmatization. There are now nearly 250,000 Americans whose professional lives are categorized as either illegal or non-existent by the government of the United States. If cannabis industry jobs were tallied like other jobs, legal cannabis would be acknowledged as the fastest growing industry in America," end quote. Full text of the study, Leafly Jobs Report 2020, appears online at leafly.com. Next story is from New Hampshire. New Hampshire's House lawmakers yesterday approved legislation, House Bill 1648, eliminating criminal and civil penalties for activities involving possession and home cultivation of personal use quantities of cannabis. New Hampshire happens to have the largest number, even though it's a small state, the largest number of legislators in their legislature. Like over 1,000 people are in their legislature. Legislators passed the bill by a veto-proof majority of 236 to 112 in favor of it. The legislation now awaits action by New Hampshire Senate. The measure legalizes the possession of up to 3/4 of an ounce of marijuana by those aged 21 or older. It also allows adults to home cultivate up to 3 mature marijuana plants and possess up to 5 grams of hashish and up to 300 milligrams of cannabis-infused products. In advance by the New Hampshire Senate, the measure is likely to face resistance from Republican Governor Chris Sununu, who's previously said that he will, quote, absolutely veto any legalization legislation, regardless of what the language looks like, end quote. Last session, the governor vetoed legislation, House Bill 364, which sought to allow patients registered in the state's medical cannabis access program the option to home cultivate up to 3 cannabis plants. In his veto message, he opined that allowing patients to grow their own medical cannabis would make the job of law enforcement significantly more difficult, and also suggested that it might reduce the number of patients soliciting the state's dispensaries. Next story is from Kentucky. members of Kentucky's House of Representatives voted by a margin of more than 2-1 this week in favor of legislation, House Bill 136, facilitating medical cannabis access. The vote marks the first time that a legislative chamber in Kentucky has ever advanced medicinal marijuana legislation. Under the plan, which now awaits Senate action, qualified patients would be able to obtain cannabis products from state licensed dispensaries. Smoking herbal cannabis will not be permitted under the Kentucky proposal. Boo. According to statewide polling compiled in January by the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky, 90% of the state residents support regulating medical marijuana access. Although the bill is anticipated to face pressure in Kentucky's Senate, the plan is expected to receive support from newly elected Democratic Governor Andy Beshear, who previously expressed a willingness to vote in favor of legalizing medical cannabis. Our next story is from Los Angeles. The Office of District Attorney for Los Angeles County, population 10 million, has announced that it will be dismissing an estimated 66,000 marijuana convictions. Some 53,000 are anticipated to have their records expunged. Nearly 60,000 of the cases under review are marijuana-related felony convictions, some of which date back to the 1960s. According to the DA, quote, the dismissal of tens of thousands of old cannabis-related convictions in Los Angeles will bring much-needed relief to communities of color that are disproportionately impacted by the unjust consequences of our nation's drug laws, Los Angeles DA Jackie Lacey said in a news release. He went on to say, quote, I am privileged to be a part of a system dedicated to finding innovative solutions and implementing meaningful criminal justice reform that gives all people the support they need to build the lives they deserve, end quote. Los Angeles County is one of several California counties participating in a pilot project that automatically reviews and expunges marijuana-related criminal convictions. To date, district attorneys in other counties such as Contra Costa, Sacramento, and San Francisco have dismissed more than 85,000 marijuana-related convictions. Our next story is out of Vienna, Austria. The daily administration of capsules containing CBD is associated with improvements in the treatment of depression, anxiety, and substance abuse disorder, according to a case report published in the journal Neuropsychiatry. A team of investigators from the University of Vienna observed the effects of CBD treatment in adolescent males with depression, social phobia, and multiple substance abuse disorders. The subjects consumed up to 600 milligrams of CBD daily for 8 weeks. The researchers reported, quote, upon treatment with CBD and cessation of antidepressant medication, the patients improved regarding depressive as well as anxiety symptoms, including simple phobias and symptoms of paranoia and disassociation. Furthermore, the patient quit abusing illegal drugs, including THC, without showing withdrawal symptoms, end quote. The absence of illegal drug intake was assessed via daily clinical evaluation, confirmed using urine tests showing continuously negative results for a broad range of substances. The authors concluded, quote, this is the first report of CBD medication in a patient with multiple substance use disorder with a positive outcome. CBD was safe and well-tolerated medicine for this patient, end quote. Full text of the study, cannabidiol treatment in an adolescent with multiple substance abuse, social anxiety, and depression, appears in the journal Neuropsychiatry. Out of Washington, D.C., most medical students report receiving no formal education about the therapeutic use of cannabis during their time as undergraduates, according to survey data published in the journal Complementary Therapies in Medicine. Investigators surveyed medical students attending George Washington University in Washington, D.C. 60% of the respondents reported having received, quote, no formal education on medical cannabis, end quote, while attending medical school, while 38% said they received only a little bit. Fewer than 2% of those surveyed said that they'd received a sufficient amount of education on medical cannabis-specific issues while in school. A majority of the respondents acknowledged being, quote, not at all prepared, end quote, to discuss issues regarding the potential benefits and risks of marijuana with their patients. 77% of the respondents agreed that there should be more formal education on medical cannabis in medical school, end quote. The authors concluded, quote, altogether, Deficits in cannabis knowledge will need to be addressed as medical and recreational legalization continues to expand around the U.S. We urge medical schools and medical education regulatory bodies to strongly consider adopting standards for cannabis education to ensure that future physicians can provide the best possible care to their patients, end quote. Their findings are similar to other studies concluding that medical health professionals receive insufficient training about medical cannabis. The study, medical students are unprepared to counsel patients about medical cannabis and want to learn more, appears in Complementary Therapies in Medicine. Our last story tonight, out of Quebec, Canada. The use of marijuana is associated with smaller waistline and lower levels of triglycerides, according to data published in the journal Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research. An investigator from the Canadian National Public Health Institute assessed the relationship between cannabis use, waist circumference, and triglyceride levels. The data analyzed in the study was extracted from a nationally representative database, the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. The researchers reported that those subjects who consumed marijuana at least 4 times a week typically possessed a smaller waistline and lower triglycerides than either non-users or former users. The finding is consistent with several prior studies indicating that marijuana use is associated with lower rates of obesity, body mass index, and cholesterol levels. The full text of this study, lifetime average cannabis use in relation to hypertriglyceride waist phenotype in U.S. adults, a population-based cross-sectional study, appears in this month's edition of Cannabis and Cannabinoid Research. And that's the end of our Hemp News segment tonight. We have a video here. We're going to flash back a few years, and we'll be right back after this music video.
He's a hit at the hemp fest rallies and a kick at the hemp stalk too. Strutting his fudge and brownies that he wants to share with you. 'Cause he's the candy man, the sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. 'Cause he's the candy man, the sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. Do the strut. Giving sweetness to the crew, 'cause he's the candy man, a sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. He's the candy man, a sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. Do the strut. The candy man, a sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. He's the candy man, a sugar shaking fudge making brownie baking son of a gun. Take it away.
There's our friend, the Candy Man. Made a lot of candy. It's good to see you, Wolf and Kevin Bjornson, Wolf Siegel? You go by Michael or Wolf or?
I've gone by Wolf for most of the last 30-some years.
Yeah. I always called you Wolfie. We always called you Wolfie.
Well, that was because Marilyn, who worked for Kevin, tried to soften me. Right, I know it's hard to believe that I could be abrasive, but I was a little abrasive, and she thought it would.
Being Wolfie would kind of make it
Big
easier.
Wolfie instead of Wolf would mellow it out.
Let's go back to the beginning, which is before I came on the scene. Then we'll go into how I got involved in the scene. But you started selling grow equipment in Seattle in the early 80s, is that right?
Yeah, 81.
81, okay. And that business was Hydrotech.
Mm-hmm.
And you sold, you manufactured and sold.
Yeah,
lights
mostly lighting, but also hydroponics and fertilizers.
And how did you two meet?
I started growing in 1971, and
how old were you then?
I was 15.
So you started growing when you were 15?
Yeah.
I planted some plants when I was about 14 or 15, but they didn't get very big before they died.
At 15, it was almost a year after I got. One afternoon, I read Bill Drake's The Cultivator's Handbook of Marijuana, and it was too late in the year to go and plant, but I had read the book, and later that evening, I went on a pharmaceutical vision quest, as a number of us were inclined to do in those days, and I experienced what my future would be, and I didn't realize at that time what all it was, but many years later I went back and talked to some people that I told about it when I came back from, there's a place in Bellingham called The Point on Chuckanut Bay that was a favorite trip location.
Okay.
So I walked back from The Point and told these people about it, and then 15, 20 years later went back and said, did I really come back one day back then and say this, 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 and this? And they said, yeah, you did, and we never have understood what it was about till we found out you were selling lights. This was a few years after I started working with Kevin. So it's 1981. And
So you met him just shortly after he opened?
Oh, I met him probably a week or two after he opened the first store that wasn't on University Avenue, but I had already bought one of his... In Seattle. I bought one of his lights through a friend of mine's friend who was working for him.
So how did you come to work with him and for him?
I'd been buying my lights and things at Indoor Sun, and which was another shop up there, and their prices weren't as good as Kevin's. And I came over and I was talking with Kevin, and Kevin likes to make sure that you know what he's talking about, so he will take the time to go into it. And while he was going into it with the customers ahead of me, someone else came in after me, and by the time Kevin was done with the people ahead of me, I had sold some lights to the people who came in after me, and that was our relationship for a couple of years.
So what's your take on it, Kevin? Do you remember that day when you met Wolfie?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I started growing. I first smoked pot in 1970 in the college dormitory. And then I started...
In Minnesota?
Actually, I went to school in California.
Okay.
And then I started growing pot indoors with fluorescence in the window and fluorescence overhead in 1972.
Okay. That was the year that the first marijuana vote was held about legalizing marijuana in California. They only got 32% of the vote, but the first Proposition 19 was on the ballot that year.
Yeah, I read that first Bill Drake book, and also the Ed Rosenthal book came out a little bit later. And
so tell our audience about the Bill Drake book. So that was like the first marijuana book, or was Mountain Girls, Primo?
Well, wasn't the first one about tobacco, though?
No, that's where it gets. I had been, up until a couple of years ago, under the impression that The Cultivator's Handbook of Marijuana was the first book about growing cannabis. But someone made me aware that there was an author called Mary Jane Superweed, who I thought had come out a little bit later. But Mary Jane Superweed's The Complete Cannabis Cultivator, looking at the
And that was right
copyright
around
was
the time of
1969.
that big musical, Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yes.
So Mary Jean Superweed kind of played off that.
Right. So it was part of that, and then I'd read Drake. This is 1970, and in 1970, at 14, I was one of the biggest pot dealers in Bellingham, Washington, a pretty liberal college town. And I read this book, and it just inspired me. I saved seeds all winter. Then in early June of 71, I hitchhiked down to Southern Oregon, to Wonder, Oregon, which is on the highway between Grass Pants and Crescent City, and planted my first crop about a half a mile up from the road there, but I still had a lot of seeds left. So I went out hitchhiking, and I spent the next month and a half being Michael Marijuana Seed, hitchhiking up and down Highway 1, Highway 101, I-5, and then across 196, which is the Arcata to Reading Road, and then from the 296 from Crescent City over to Grass Pants.
And you were planting hemp seeds.
I was planting cannabis
seeds. They weren't hemp seeds.
Every place that my gut said,
I see.
this is the place.
Let me interrupt you just for a second. So it is the 21st of February, 2020. And if you'd like to call and ask us any questions regarding marijuana, medical marijuana, industrial hemp, well, this is the show to call and ask on. The number to call us is that one there on your screen. It's 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. We'll be on for about another 35 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, you can call us. If you want someone else out there to watch this show, they can watch it anywhere in the world at facebook.com/restorehemp. That's facebook.com/restorehemp. And we archive it at youtube.com/cannabiscommonsense. So there is that. Just this last week, I had a contact with a fellow who is prominent in a series of 3 different motion pictures and a continuing television series from Showtime and Netflix called The Trailer Park Boys out of Canada. And so Randy from the Trailer Park Boys came into our office, and he's having a picnic, Randy's Cheeseburger Picnic, this Sunday at the Bossa Nova Ballroom. And he's going to talk a little bit about that in this video. We'll be right back after this.
Go.
Hey, Randy, I want to welcome you to Cannabis Common Sense.
Good to
so
be
you're
here.
From the Sunnyvale Trailer Park.
That's right, the Sunnyvale Trailer Park on the east coast of Canada.
So is that like Nova Scotia or something like that?
Yeah, that's right, Nova Scotia, close to Halifax, actually.
My wife is from Halifax.
No way!
Yeah, she was born there, lived there until she was 5.
Wow,
But
that's awesome.
I haven't been back there yet myself. She's
Well,
been here since then.
It's on the east coast, very
It is.
far east.
It's about as far as you can get.
On the
State North
Atlantic
America.
Ocean.
Yeah.
And we're on the Pacific right now, Paul.
I know. You know, her last name was Dory, like the Dory boats. So I figure that she must have had ancestors that fished out there off the coast of Halifax long ago.
Oh, there's lots of fish and lobsters and clams and oysters
I love
and
that
crabs. Sometimes you don't want to catch those, though.
Yeah, there's some kinds you definitely don't want to catch.
No way.
So you're going to be in Portland for a few events here.
That's right. I'm doing a Randy Cheeseburger Picnic tour right now. We started in California, and we did a few shows there. And then we came to Oregon, and we've been loving Oregon. We went to Bend, and we went to Coos Bay, we went to Medford, and we do have a show in Portland on the 23rd of February at the Bossa Nova Ballroom. And it's going to be a big old party. We got songs, games, contests, prizes. It's going to be a big party is what it's going to be.
Cool. So you're animated now, right? Are you doing a live series still, or?
Well, there's actually what happened, Paul, was Ricky. We had to eat Ricky's mushrooms.
Oh.
A lot of he grew them underneath the trailers, and we all ate so many that we turned into cartoons.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Usually, you get over it after a while, but
it's something. We were just fistfuls and folks don't eat too many mushrooms, you might turn into a cartoon.
You'll hear the earth music.
It's true. I kind of look like that guy. What's the guy on The Simpsons? Homer Simpson. I look like him, but with more hair. I got more hair.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
cool.
he's pretty handsome. That guy.
So that's on Netflix, right?
So yes, the animated season, and there's another season of it coming out because it was a long buzz on from the mushrooms. I sounded like Mr. Leahy right there.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming in and seeing us here in Portland. I look forward to the Bossa Nova Club on the 23rd. That sounds like a fun event.
You think you're gonna come out?
I will.
All right, have
I'll
some
be in town.
cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
Maybe a drinky poo.
A couple.
We got this leaf behind us.
I know.
What is that all
That's
about?
a big cannabis leaf that this fellow donated. He came in and painted it. I said, I want to paint a big pot leaf. And I said, okay.
They wouldn't let me bring my honey bong across the border.
No,
I had a
they
honey
don't like
bong
that.
and they said it was used. I couldn't bring it.
Yeah, no, I'm glad they even let you in.
Sweet and sour chicken balls. That's what that was.
Okay. Well, anything else you want to tell our audience here?
No, I just want to. Well, I will. I must say, I like the West Coast, and I like your wonderful state here. Oregon is a great state, and it's beautiful scenery and good people. Everyone that we've met seems to be really nice. You know,
We try.
It's true.
It's a friendly place.
And there's a lot of this stuff around.
That's true.
I must say.
We're pretty well known for having some of the best cannabis. We don't even have to grow it under the trailer anymore.
That's unbelievable. Well, I'm very honored to be here with you, and I've heard a little bit about all the things you've done, and you sound like quite a guy.
I've done a lot of stuff.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming in, and go out to the Bossa Nova on the 23rd of February.
Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you. Okay, there. You heard it. So you opened a store, Kevin, in Portland. In what was it, like 1980,
yeah.
85?
It was Seattle in 81, and then in Portland in 85. So I had two stores.
And you sent him down here to
Yeah.
be like the manager, right? in
Yeah, I
Portland?
sent.
And that's where I met
Wolfie
Wolfie,
down
and I
to
met
Portland,
you.
Yeah.
Was there at your Hydrotech store here in Portland.
Yeah, we all got involved with that OMI,
The Oregon Marijuana Initiative
yeah.
petition,
And then,
which was the second vote on marijuana legalization.
and also
in the
the
United States.
campaign for governor of Dr. Fred Orther.
Yeah. He ran for governor and attorney general, and he got a lot, like 25% of the vote as a libertarian candidate in, I think it was 1988, I think. He also ran in 1990, I believe.
Yeah, and we went out to his farm many times.
Yeah.
Him
He's
and
been
Dad.
a guest on the show.
And
About a year and
it
a
was
half.
like, it was always an open door. We'd bring a little food up for like potluck, and we'd have some nice home-cooked meals. It was like a family, you know, it was really great.
So I met you by going and selling ads to the Marijuana Report, which was a publication of the Oregon Marijuana Initiative.
Yeah.
And that's how I got drawn in. And then in 1986, I was arrested in conjunction with the Oregon Marijuana Initiative, and they used it against the campaign. And went through a lot of different things, some pretty bizarre ones that you'll have to read in the book someday.
Now that the statute of limitations is long in the past,
Yeah.
I will throw out there that certain people gardening provided most of the financing for anti-prohibition activities
That's right, and
here
that's-
in Oregon in the 80s.
I was growing. Jack Harrer moved to Oregon, and we were growing. We all kind of learned from John Sajo. And, you know, the cops knew that at the time because they had informants in place when I got busted in 86. But they never could tie him or other people into it, even though they put me through some pretty bizarre things to try to make me roll over for them, but didn't work.
It was like
Anyway.
it was like Hogan's Heroes.
Yeah.
A little. I'm going to time machine it back a tiny bit from there,
Go
just to where Kevin and I come together. So I'm coming in and I'm working. I'm coming in as a customer, buying lights, selling lights to the people who come in after me while I'm waiting for Kevin to get done with whoever was before me. And in '83, I got fired from a job, and Kevin said, "Well, why don't you come work for me?" And it seemed like a good idea. Kevin's business was starting to pick up. I started out doing assembly for him, and about 2.5 or 3 months later, he made me general manager because I saw some things that could happen reasonably well. And then in May, he had me go to National Normal. I met Jack there. I hadn't met you yet because I hadn't moved to Oregon. June 1st, 1985 was our official opening date for Hydrotech on Sandy Boulevard. And at that point, it was Katie bar the door because everything that was new in growing cannabis, it seems like, was coming from Hydrotech. We were the
So you got a stack of magazines here.
Yes, I do.
And these are Sensimilla Tips, which came out here in Oregon, out of Corvallis, from Tom Alexander. He had Full Moon Hydro Shops in Corvallis.
Yes.
And so you've got, that's one of your, is that your first ad in there?
It's one of them.
And so which one? I'll let Wolfie go through them. I know this is his collection, so he's.
This is the very first Hydrotech ad.
I see. Let's see if we can get. I don't know that he's going to try to close in with camera one, perhaps.
Okay.
If you hold it still.
You
got to hold it still.
I don't have
jump up and
still.
down.
I don't have still left.
There. That's pretty good. Yeah, I can understand. There's your first ad. Okay. And what year is that?
This is from 1981.
Okay, 1981.
That was the first edition.
That's the year I moved to Washington.
And here's the second edition right here.
I see. So that's your book.
Uh-huh.
1987.
Our
Now, when
book.
did the first
Our book.
edition of Growing Indoors for Fun and Profit? That's
Yeah,
what it's
Growing
called,
Indoors.
right?
Yeah,
So the first edition came out when? In 81? And then revised in 80?
This one is 81. This one is 80.
87.
87.
Says so right there.
Yeah,
so it
it
must
says
be
it there
true.
at the top. So
Yeah, I think there was an earlier version of this book.
there was. This is actually the third edition. The second edition has this cover and
I
looks
see.
like this. I'm not exactly.
This is advertising what must have been the first edition.
Growing for Profit Indoors.
Right.
In,
81.
Yeah, 81. Okay.
First year was 80.
Okay.
And we started writing together.
And you were jointly putting together articles under the moniker of?
The Farmer in the Sky.
And if someone wants to reach you,
They can reach me
at Wolf
at farmerinthesky.com. .com. And they would have an opportunity, if they're interested in the history of cannabiculture and in how it developed. I've put together an anthology that has 6 years worth of columns from Sensimilla Tips, of the Farmer in the Sky columns from Sensimilla Tips. It's got the full text of Growing Indoors for Fun and Profit. We're still hunting for it because it has to go to the publisher in the next, I think it's 3 weeks from now, it goes to the publisher. That has, there were a couple articles that we did for High Times, and there were a couple that were in Treating Yourself. Hopefully we'll be able to get copies of those. Those will be included. We're doing some connecting.
they're in High Times, they should be readily available.
You would think.
Yeah, no, they're out there.
Yeah.
Well, the two of the articles, one is about UVB for potency enhancement, which is still the classic. It's the best one in the topic they've ever written, and all the subsequent articles in High Times are derivative of that one. So the other one was about the short plant method, the Sea of Green.
Sea of Green.
Yeah.
The method that I came up
Yeah,
with.
and see, so I was the
So
writer.
the Sea of Green, explain what the Sea of Green is, because
Okay.
a lot of people out there don't understand.
In Sea of Green, what you're trying to do is just grow. When you grow big plants, typically you'd have 15 or 18 inches of good plant, and then the rest of it was larf and lumber.
Yeah. Well, that's because the intensity of the light is is a narrow range.
There's what I call the grow zone.
You know
And-
what? We have a caller.
All right.
Let's go ahead and take the caller. We don't
Yes.
get that many anymore since people have been cutting the cable. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello.
Hey. Welcome.
Hi. I had a question for Wolf.
Go ahead.
I might have an answer.
Yeah. I heard you talk. Oh, the telephone connection isn't so good.
Yeah, don't listen to the phone. Just turn your TV down and say what you
Oh,
have to
the
say.
TV's off. Yeah.
Okay, good. Go ahead. We can hear you fine.
Very good. Wolf, you were talking before. Whoops.
You're fine. We can still hear you.
Okay, you were talking before. I'm getting feedback from your phone.
Okay, try to ignore that because we're not.
Okay. I, you were talking before about your experience of distributing seeds around like Johnny Appleseed would with cannabis. And I'm anticipating doing the same thing. I have a big bag, and I want to go down Highway 101 and do the same thing. I was wondering if you had some advice about where I should distribute this seed. And also, follow up, did you come back to where you'd planted and found successful results? Like,
I would say today, let me just interrupt
Okay.
real quick. Today, there are a lot of people growing hemp for hemp flower, for CBD and CBG. And if you planted hemp that was male plants, you could pollinate their crop and really ruin their outdoor crop. So you don't want to do it anywhere where people are growing sensimilla, low THC
yeah,
hemp.
of course.
But go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. And with that in mind, I would say don't. But I'll share what I did. I did a lot of pharmaceutical vision questing in those days, a lot. And what I did, the way I knew to plant is when my gut said stop, I would have whoever had given me a ride let me out. I'd walk up till I couldn't hear the road and I'd plant. Then I'd walk back down to the road and I'd hang my thumb out. If it got too slow going the direction I'd been headed, I'd go across the road and go back the other way. I did that for about 6 weeks. Sadly, to finish your second part, I did not get to go and harvest any of it. 6th of August, 1971, I took my first pot bust. I was in Bellingham. A guy grabs me by the arm and says, "What's in the bag, kid?" As it happened, it was a grocery bag full of lids. Not a good thing. It turned out it was Sergeant something or other of the Bellingham Police Department.
And you were 15.
And I was 15, yes. That sort of, the pattern of my
changed you.
life altered radically at that point.
I'd also like to say that in a PBS series called The 90s, in 1989, Chris Conrad also did that. He went around throwing hemp seeds around. They called him Johnny Hempseed in that 1989 series.
I've done it in my neighborhood here, and seen some results. But of course, I live in Portland here, and of course, you don't see much getting very, very mature. Thanks for the conversation. Anyway.
All right, you guys have a good evening. Thanks for calling.
Yeah.
We have another video we're going to run right now, and that is a little less than 2-minute video. It's with our friend Jorge Cervantes talking about organic cultivation and why you should go organic. We'll be right back.
You know, this is really God's country. It is beautiful. It's natural. It's just like it always has been. And land management is incredibly important. You know, you've heard about these big Mexican cartels and the growers that go out in the hills and leave all their junk out there, plastics, and then the chemicals, the fertilizers that they leave out there, those bleed down into the streams. And then also some growers are out here and they'll find a stream and pump a lot of water out of it. Well, the stream actually lowers in level, and then the sun hits the bottom of the stream and everything, changes the whole ecosystem. All this algae starts growing in there, takes up all the oxygen out of the water, and fish can't live. And in fact, that stuff has gotten so bad, the pollution In certain places, it's gotten so bad, and they've traced it back to chemicals coming down into the streams. It's gotten so bad that it's actually killed several dogs that were swimming in it in the fall. There's actually advisories not to swim in the creeks. This is a huge argument for organics because, see, when you've got an organic garden, you've got all your soil and everything's feeding your plant right there, and you can grow some pretty good sized plants organically if you pay attention. I'd say this is a pretty good example of what you can do and still be a wonderful steward for the land. And on top of that, you're growing organic medicine for patients. So it's a win-win situation. Get behind organics, it's great.
So that's Jorge Cervantes. That's actually 9 years old, I believe. Excuse me. Anyway, so we've only got about 10 minutes left here, maybe 15. Let's get into, well, first of all, the bust thing. So you were there was this Operation Green Merchant. Maybe we get Steve, we'll have you close in on this little patch here. This is a patch that you picked up. It's a DEA patch about Operation Green Merchant. So DEA agents who participated in this, and all of us eventually were caught up in Operation Green Merchant, which started in 1989.
They unsealed the first indictments in Green Merchant on October 26, 1989. They raided 63 grow shops in 48 states. They arrested 200 and some people.
In that first wave of arrests.
In phase one. I understand there were 3 phases of Green Merchant. In phase one, which lasted 18 months, it's my dubious honor to have been taken down for the highest plant count of anyone taken in.
Someone who was researching Sea of Green.
Sea of Green, right?
So how many plants was that?
It was in excess of 12,000 plants.
Okay.
Which sounds like a whole lot of plants, but understand.
How many square feet was that?
Oh, God, I don't even remember. It was 4 plants per square foot, so that would be roughly 3,000 square feet.
Okay.
About 1/10 of an acre, a little under 1/10 of an acre, which isn't that much. But the thing is that what was so cool about Sea of Green was...
Was this outdoors or indoors?
Indoors.
Okay.
A bunch of different... What John Hobb, the Assistant United States Attorney, kept calling it was a multi-state network of extremely sophisticated indoor grow operations. Does that phrase sound familiar?
Yeah, yeah. So you were caught up in that too, right? You were part of that, and so you had federal charges. I had worked in your stores for a few weeks, not a long time, but they didn't arrest me in that first wave, but they nabbed me a year or so later. Or they managed to find an informant.
Well, it took them a long time to actually charge me because the first grand jury refused to render an indictment, and they strung it out the full 18 months, and at the end of that, they couldn't get them to indict. So we had to convene, Jonathan Hobb had to convene a second grand jury. Now, we talked about this before, and I said, well, would it be okay if we asked Hobb to come on the program? And you said, yeah, so I asked him, and he did not.
Did he reply?
Well, actually, we were corresponding for a while.
So you asked the federal prosecutor that prosecuted us.
Right, right. I says, it's what's passed is passed. That
he's not a U.S. assistant attorney
retired,
anymore.
Yeah, and I initially called him so I can try to get my sentence, a federal conviction,
sealed.
Sealed, and which is almost impossible to do. But it's theoretically is possible, but there are no set guidelines for that. But he couldn't do it because it'd be conflict of interest. And
that's what he said in terms of coming on our show.
Yeah, and then what pissed him off is that I says,
so he didn't want you to talk about this on the show. So did he say anything to that regard?
First, it was just about the sealing of the convictions, right? And he said he couldn't do that because it'd be conflict of interest. And I says, oh, well, I've never heard of that. Yeah, it's possible. Maybe we could check with the U.S. Attorney's Manual. As soon as I mentioned that, he stopped corresponding with me. Well, the reason, backstory in that is that I filed a bar complaint against him because he done something improper in my case. He got me served in a private, unrelated civil lawsuit when I appeared at a federal courthouse. He tipped them off that I would be there, and I got served for a dog bite case, which is actually against federal policies for that. And I used the U.S. Attorney's Manual and some court decisions to back that up. Well, he was able to wiggle out of that because we never actually contested it. So we had some bitter memories about that, I think. So as soon as I mentioned that, he stopped corresponding with me.
I wanted to tell our audience out there, in case they don't know, that a lid is an ounce, or 28 grams. That's what we used to call an ounce of marijuana. It was supposed to be 28 grams. It would vary depending on who you bought it from. But.
And the term lid, in the old days, a 1 pound tobacco can tin, however much you could balance on that lid, that was a lid. Now, that happens to 4 fingers. If it was tight rolled in a sandwich bag, they hadn't invented Ziplocs yet. That was a lid, and it turned out to be about an ounce. But when we started, it wasn't sold in pounds; it was sold in kilos. Kilos became bricks. Bricks became pounds, which became bricks again. Sometimes that were less than a pound. Lids became ounces. Or became bags, became ounces, became bags, became dubs, whatever a dub is. I heard some kid offer me a dub, and I was like, huh?
I think that's a joint. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know.
Doobie.
A doobie I'm good with, but
Yeah.
I think it's a weight. But
Okay.
we're starting to run really low on time. Look for on Facebook.
We still that 1 clock there isn't accurate, so
Oh,
we still
okay.
have like more than 10 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
The short clock, the one below. Pay attention to the red clock.
Had me scared.
No, we're not running out. Right
Okay. The book, I'm really proud that this book that we're bringing out, The Farmer in the Sky So Far.
So you're working
is
on
all
2
of these.
books right now.
I'm working on 2 books. The Farmer in the Sky So Far brings you through all of what the Farmer in the Sky did, some amazing stuff.
Some historic stuff.
Some major historic stuff. The first paraboloid reflectors, sea of green, screen of green,
But
UV
your new book
supplementation. But
is
the new
going to
book,
be what?
The book that's coming out this fall is called How to Grow Wiser, a Cultivator's Handbook for Growing Cannabis Sustainably. George was talking about growing organically. When Paul grows, he grows organically. When Kevin grows, he generally grows organically. If you care about the people who are smoking or eating what you make, you want them to have the cleanest cannabis that they can, because their bodies, their biochemistries may be compromised. Their immune systems may be compromised. You want healthy people to get healthier. If you're growing for the right reasons, and I don't have a problem with commercial production, but for me, I want what I grow to be part of someone's healing. I want that herb to go to them from my heart. I want it to be a gift of love and a gift of life, and that means I grow biotically. If it's not from nature, it's not part of my growth process, and that includes artificial lighting. Artificial lighting can be delivered in natural proportions. You can put your lighting systems together in such a way that it matches the sun. You can fine-tune it for where what you grew came from, so it matches the altitude and the latitude of where it came from. And that's all going to be in How to Grow Wiser. We're going to look at photobiology, the science of how light and plants interact, to talk about ways to get plants to maximize their chemical expressions, to maximize their yields while using as little electricity as you possibly can, because every 1,000 watts burning ties up 197 trees worth of carbon dioxide sequestration. So think about that. Do you want those 197 trees cleaning up car fumes and cow farts?
I would much rather just use the sun,
If
because it's a lot cheaper. Of course, you won't be selling indoor lights. if you're using the
Right.
sun. But you've got to have some lights to keep a garden going and make clones.
And the future,
you know,
the future of
all
mass
the
production
greenhouses have
is going to be
artificial light
light supplemented greenhouses. They're
Right.
probably going
And that's
to be
not the
done-
future. That's right now.
That's right now. They're going to be done with ceramic metal halide lights. They're going to be done with a type of lighting that's come back that was gone for a while called high energy plasma, sulfur plasma lighting. It's amazing. Way, way less electricity, growing more plants, healthier plants, plants that are closer
You
to what
have a
need.
great deal of passion. I can
I
see
do,
in saying
I do.
that.
I want people to love how they grow.
Jump in here right now and say that if you're interested in medical marijuana, we have a physician referral service. If you have any of these conditions, from chronic pain, neurodegenerative diseases, gastrointestinal ailments, cancer, then we have doctors all across the United States that can help you. I just gave a referral to a Kentucky doctor earlier today. So if you want more information on a medical referral or to get a medical marijuana permit, we will refer you to doctors. Just call us at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. If you want to reach our office and ask any questions privately, call that number, 503-235-4606.
And
Kevin, you have a number for your hydrotech business. If someone wants indoor,
206
yeah,
547 2202. That's 206 547 2202. And also we have a Facebook page for Hydrotech, 2 words, Hydrotech Garden Store in Alma, Washington. Now I sell mainly ceramic metal halides. I do have some LEDs. I think ceramic is cheaper generally. It's good for greenhouses or for indoors. And so just look up Facebook for Hydrotech, and you'll see a bunch of articles there about ceramic metal halide and plant spectrum. Generally, you'll want to make it as close as possible to natural sunlight. You can tweak it a little bit, but generally you want full spectrum, and that's all we sell in lighting. Now, you need light in the wintertime because the greenhouses get too cold in the wintertime, and you need more light in the wintertime because the sunlight levels are low. So you can grow year-round, even in a greenhouse, with lights.
Yeah, you have to supplement.
Yeah, and then plus...
I mean, basically, once you fall below 16, or 14 hours of daylight, your plants are going to start flowering.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure you have more than a 14-hour daylight and 10 hours of nighttime.
Right, plus if it falls below 70 degrees Fahrenheit, the plant growth really slows down. A lot of your bacteria, your microbiological activity is slowed down below 70 Fahrenheit.
Soil temperature.
So the lights add some heat. So with greenhouses, you need about maybe half the light as you do in indoors. So you're still saving at least half the electricity.
For the commercial cannabis growers out there, they get a higher price with greenhouse grown cannabis.
Oh yeah, because you have more control over the environment.
So we've got about 4 minutes left here. We'll probably run a minute of music. So Wolfie, is the best way to reach you via email?
The best way to reach me is wolf@farmerinthesky.com, FARMERINTHESKY.com, or Michael Wolf Siegel on Facebook.
All right, all right. And so we're down to just the last few minutes. What do you want to say here in closing?
I want to say that if you believe in the importance of medical cannabis, then you need to stay involved in the program. That means go get your card. That means go see Paul, go see his doctors. If you believe in medical cannabis as a spiritual and positive experience, grow biotically. If you really listen to your plants, they will get you higher growing them than they will consuming them. I love consuming them, but I get off better on growing them. I think everyone should grow a couple because it's good for the soul.
So I wanted to mention that this new regulatory, the first medical marijuana law in Washington State was written by a friend of mine. It was designed, you grow your own or as a caregiver for one patient. Well, the legislature, that couldn't be taxed. There was no way to tax that. So that's when they started getting all these legislative reforms until we got this 502 thing. But you can still grow your own medical cannabis for your own personal consumption.
Yeah, in Washington, you have to have a medical marijuana permit to be able to grow your own.
Well,
they still
you don't have
have
to have a permit. They encourage that, but all you need is a
Well, when I say a permit, I mean a doctor's recommendation.
doctor's recommendation.
Yeah.
Now, you can also get a permit.
Yeah, from a local dispensary.
Right, but it's not required.
No,
you can
it's not.
still
You can grow more, though, in Washington if you do. Where here in Oregon, without any license at all, you can grow 4 plants per household. And with a medical marijuana permit, you can grow an additional 6 per patient.
Well, in Washington State, you can grow 15 plants if you're medically certified.
If you register.
Up to 15. Between 4, no, even if you don't register, make it, okay.
You have to ask your doctor
Yeah, if
to
your doctor
authorize
certifies
up
you
to
for
15 plants.
15, it's up to your doctor.
Yeah.
Now, so the default is 4 if you're not registered and 6 if you are. But if your doctor says you can go 15, you can go 15 whether you register or not.
All right. Well, we're about out of time. I want to thank you guys for coming on. You want to run your number there again, Kevin? Just
Yes. We saw the Seattle phone number. It's area code 206-547-2202.
Okay.
It's also on our Facebook page, Hydro Tech Facebook page. Has a bunch of interesting articles.
Is Hydrotech one word or hyphenated? Or
2. It's Hydro and Tech.
Okay.
And it's
How's that spelled?
HYDROTECH. And Dr. Fred Arthur himself has liked it. Recommends it.
All right. Well, great. Well, I want to thank you guys for watching. We're going to be back again next week with another live show. We have music from Scott Sky Johnson to take us back. This is how to implement a hemp economy. Thanks for watching. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp.
Yes.
There is a plant that we all know is illegal. But why that is, I really just don't see. 'Cause it's something that could help us change this path of destruction we're on. If we change to a hemp economy. There has been many centuries it has been used to make paper. 4 times more fiber per acre than trees. We could save our ancient forest. It's renewable every year when we change to a hemp economy. You know, a quarter of all the pesticides and herbicides sprayed on Mother Earth are sprayed there by the cotton industry. Did I mention you can make a fine cloth from its stalk when we change? Why don't we change? The seed has got more protein per pound than any other plant. We could feed it to all of the world's hungry. 'Cause it grows like a weed in all 50 states, even builds up your soil when we change to a hemp economy. And the seed has got more oil per pound than any other plant. We could refine it to make cleaner gasoline. We could reduce pollution from combustion by 80% just by changing to a hemp economy. You know, alcohol. It can reduce your stress. Open your mind up along with your capillaries. A pharmacopoeia of medicine from glaucoma to pain. When we change, we got to change. There is a plant that we all know is illegal sometimes, but why that is, I really just don't see. Because it's something that could help us change this path of destruction we're on. We got to change, can't you see? Change your reality and change to a happy kind of me. We gotta change. We got to change.